Gary, it was beautiful. You know the type of commercial with a stentorian disc jockey voice, with this music, beautiful violin music in the background, backing them up, and saying, if you get in trouble with the law, call Big Jim's bail bonds. We'll take care of you. So he'd pre-done this commercial to make a sale. And he said, okay, we get the contract. He said, the account's yours. And I thought, well, okay. So we went down to see Big Jim, which was almost impossible. Even law enforcement couldn't get in to see this guy, right?
Oh, wow.
So we get into the conference room, Gary, and here's this kind of character from Star Wars, the big lizard sitting at a table, and this guy, young guy, sitting next to him with the razor-cut hair and the suede shoes. You know the look. And that was the son, Little Jim, and he starts out by saying, I think this is a complete waste of time, and we don't need to buy anything. And Frank says, I have a sample commercial. And Little Jim says, we don't need to hear any stupid. And Big Jim said, play it. So Frank pushes the button. Now, instead of the sweet timbre of the disc jockey's rendition, Frank's voice booms out, backed by organ music in a minor key. And here's what he says. Hit your mom with an axe? If you have money in the bank here at Jim's bail bonds, we don't care. By now, the kid was on his feet, and Frank's voice goes on. Shot your wife and buried her in the desert. If you have equity, if you have equity in real estate here at Big Jim's bail bonds, we don't care. So the kid's eyes were bulging. I've never seen anybody's eyes bulge before, and he started to sputter at us and come around the table, and suddenly he noticed his dad was laughing so hard, we all thought he was going to have a heart attack. And after he caught his breath, he looked up at Frank, and he said, that took some grit. That was really stupid, but that took some grit, and it was great. Great. He said, I'll give you your contract on one condition. And I thought, oh, boy, here we go. So Frank pushes over a whopper of a contract, Gary, all cash, in advance, year contract, right? Frank says, okay, what's the condition? And Big Jim said, you give me a copy of that commercial, and it better be the only copy. and you never run anything on the air without my approval. Frank said, you got it, and the deal was done.
Oh, wow.
The kid, Little Jim, never said a word. But I am telling you, Gary, if looks could kill, Frank and I would have left there with a case of Ebola. And I always thought that Big Jim wanted that commercial to bury it. But years later, I was told that Big Jim played it at parties for a long time, right up until he went to jail.
Right till he went to jail. That's a good one.
Yep.
I wonder if he played it in jail, too.
I don't know, but that was selling something to the loan shark. I'll never forget it. And I stayed at the station for, a few months, but I finally got so uneasy with, what was going on. I never saw anything illegal, but you know how it is, Gary, sometimes you just feel something's a little out of kilter.
Oh, yeah.
And so I thought, well, I'll just put this in the hopper as a good story and go on to other things.
Well, it's true. Not the first station, but I think the second station I worked at, they said, okay, well, we want you to do top 40. Well, guess what? I got there and they didn't want top 40 because I guess they listened to my, what I was doing at the other station. But they got there and they said, okay, well, we don't have much money because we're in a town called Forks, Washington. And they said they're on the peninsula right by the ocean. And they said, well, you know what we can do? We own an apartment. So we'll give you your apartment, in a trade. They also they own the record store. They own one of the grocery stores. They said, hey, all this will come off of what your salary would be. Well, the first month I'm going, well, but gee, don't worry. We got a gas voucher. You can go to the Chevron station and they'll give you gas. And I'm going, I can't even, I was single at the time. I go, I can't even take a girl on a date unless I go to the local cafe. That was so bad. But then one day they come up to me and they say, we really need to rent that apartment out. We need money. And I said, well, where am I going to go? Don't worry about it. We'll get you a nice cot. You can sleep back where the transmitter is in that room. It's nice and warm.
No.
And
You're
I'm going,
kidding.
yeah. So I did that for a little while. And then one day in the middle of the night, it hit me. I am not going to stay here. I'm not making any money. All I'm doing is existing. And I took off in the middle of the night. And that was the end of it.
Yep. Yeah, it's like that. Well, that's the way it was. And people who've never, I feel sorry sometimes for people who've never experienced that. But those days, they truly are gone. But it was, as you know, it was like the Mad Hatter's Tea Party. And nobody had any money, but they had lots of stuff. And always a cot in the back room. That's a good story. Yeah,
I'll tell you one thing. It was 5,000 watts during the day. At night, we had to drop down to 250 watts. You know,
it's a day timer.
Yeah, pretty much. And, you know, and at 250 watts, I'll be honest with you, Forks is a small town, a small community. It still is. But you know what? On a good night, you could maybe be at the local hamburger place, drive the road down about 2 miles, and then that's when the signal would drop out.
Was it a directional as well?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't.
Yeah, because
a lot of people don't understand that, but radio stations don't just go out in a big circle. There are some that are directional. The signal only goes in a little narrow corridor. So not only was it a day timer, but it was a directional day timer as well.
Yeah, because across the bay out there was Vancouver, British Columbia. So, I mean, they had their stations there, so we couldn't beam that direction. And the other direction was the Pacific Ocean. So, you know, we just covered, you know, it was funny. We were on to midnight every night. But again, you know, you might say you're a day timer because after, you know, the sun went down, nobody heard you.
Yeah. It's kind of a practice exercise. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So anyway, it's been fun, but it kind of goes back to, you know, what you and I were talking about previously. That in my case, you know, I don't think I don't have the particular personality, direction, or talent to write a really great, you know, Mockingjay or Harry Potter or something like that. All I have are my tales from the day. And the first book has 19, and second book will probably have 19 or 20. And then I hope the public likes them, because then I think I'm pretty well done, you know.
Oh, come on! You got to come out with you got to come out Tales of the Day, Volume 3.
Yep. Well, then I'm going to have to get into fiction.
Nah, I'm sure you. Come on, Wayne. I'm sure you can come up with a whole bunch of more stuff. Now, you were talking about the guy, the farmer, before we went on the air. You want to talk about? Yeah, another thing. We're going to have to go to break pretty soon. It was only going to be an hour. Do you want to stay to the end of the? Let's see. We're going on 8 to 8:30.
Well, whatever works for you. I got a tale about a farmer, actually a road worker, who swore he had been taken many times, and it could be true. It's called The Day the Lord Worked in a Very Mysterious Way, and it is not a religious tone.
Well, we got about 8 minutes before we have to go on break. Let's go for it.
Okay. Well, what it's about is that my wife and I have had our real estate experiences. One of them being a place that we bought where everybody missed the fact, including the title company, that there was an IRS lien on the place. So we've had our real estate adventures, right? And Gloria and I, my wife and I, had started the company, computer company, and we had our tech support in South Dakota, where I grew up. So we'd travel back and forth there, and Gloria had never been to the Midwest, never in her life. So the first time we went back to South Dakota, we were driving down the road. And as you know, in South Dakota, I mean, you can have a tank battle and you're not going to hit anybody. I mean, it's a huge state, bigger than Washington. And there's only 800,000 people in it. That's it. In the whole state. There are more cows than people. And in Denver, I don't know, they've got a couple million. Where I lived in L.A., there were like 4 or 5 million people. I mean, 800,000 people is like a suburb. And that's the whole state. So we're driving down the road, and and we get stopped by a guy, one of the workers, with a pole, the stop sign on it.
Oh yeah.
And so we're in the car, and I'm looking around, and there's nothing. I mean, nothing to the horizon, right? And it's flat. So I rolled down the window, and I said, "Hey, pretty lonely out here. And you ever see the UFOs?" And Gloria, my wife, starts punching my arm, saying, "Stop it! Stop it!" And the guy walks over with a sign. He says, "Why, yes. I see flying saucers all the time out here. In fact, I've ridden in them." Now, the Midwest is known for a really dry sense of humor. But the road crew guy started describing saucer interiors in great detail. I mean, I thought, who can make this stuff up, right? And Gloria leans over and is whispering in my ear, "Roll up the window." And I started to,
I'm sorry.
as I started to roll up the window, the road crew guy leans completely into the car, looks at my wife and says, "And I know the location of every house of ill repute in South Dakota." that was my wife's introduction to
was she kind of nudging you with her ankle or foot or something, like, "Hey, let's go"?
Kicking me in the shin.
Yes.
Heavily. You know how it is. We've both been married a long time. And she was just saying, "Don't goad this guy," And he seemed like a nice enough guy, but that last line was a killer. I mean, it really was.
You don't know. He might have been a killer. No, but anyway, go ahead.
Well, it's very possible. Listen, I know you got to take a break, so stop me when you got to.
We got about three. We got 3.5 minutes.
Well, our experience in South Dakota was absolutely fantastic. Again, I grew up there, so I was kind of used to it. But Gloria went back to L.A., and we had vowed to each other, Curry. I mean, vowed to each other. There were going to be no more real estate adventures. No more. We'd built a place in California and Malibu, and we've done some things. And we just said, we've had enough trouble to last ourselves the rest of our life. And another thing we vowed is we'd never get into a big house. Been there, done that, and then you wake up one day and you realize you don't walk into 90% of it. So what are you doing, right? Paying a big mortgage for the cockroaches. And so anyway, Gloria was back in L.A. doing some business, and I got a call from a guy out there whose family for 3 generations, Gary, had run the biggest house moving company in the whole multi-state area. Moving houses in farm country is done all the time. Farmers will retire and they'll move their house to the city. I'm serious.
Oh, wow.
And these moving companies, they just give them the key. They wouldn't take out any furniture, wouldn't take out any dishes. They just move the house. So this guy said, "Hey, I hear you're looking for a house." And the head of the president of the moving company, I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Listen, there's a place we moved years ago. It's 100 years old. And the people who bought it, the parents died and they want to sell it. And we could move it for you to, we had a little lake lot we bought on credit." And he said, "We could move it to your lake lot." And I said, "How big is it?" And he said, "It's 3 stories, an old Victorian at 6,000 square feet." I said, "What are you smoking something? Are you crazy?" And so he said, "Okay, come on out and take a look at it." So I went out. Now, and the father was there, this guy's father, and he was a legend. He had consolidated the moving company business by buying or driving everybody else out. And one day, as it was told to me by people who were there, they were moving a house down the road, and a farmer, and there's nobody more stubborn than an old farmer, was driving down the road in his pickup in front of the moving house and going really slow, and he wouldn't move. So the owner of the moving company went up to him, tapped on his window. When the farmer rolled it down, he cold-cocked him. He smacked him right smack in the jaw, knocked him cold, pushed the truck down the ditch, and they moved the house down the road. They're pretty basic people,
Yeah, friendly, too.
Yeah. So I went and looked at this house. Now, mind you, Gloria wasn't there. And I tell you, Gary, when I was done, I just sat right down the stairs. I wanted it to be trashed, but it was so beautiful. These people had spent all kinds of money on it. There was a gym inside and a lap pool, and and all the original woodworking restored, and I